I think you're right. I think there is so much misinformation, disinformation, as we've been talking about. You talked about the video of the president wandering, and it's not true, right? The president wasn't wandering. He was talking to a parachuter that was right in front of him. And what you saw is the Republican Party really manipulating what was being said and what was being seen by the American people. It's also very insulting to the folks the viewers who are watching it. And so we believe we have to call that out. We've been calling it cheap fakes. That is something that came directly from the media outlets, and calling it that, the fact checkers, and calling it that. And so we're certainly going to be really clear about that as well.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, I gotta tell you guys, it is getting worse and worse and worse for Joe Biden, as the mainstream liberal media is running full-blown propaganda to try to convince the American people that Joe Biden is not mentally falling apart, okay? However, they have been largely unsuccessful in doing so, and we're going to talk more about that. But the Biden campaign, in the meantime, while they're encouraging the mainstream liberal media to run propaganda, they're panicking, okay? Which, again, is the whole point of encouraging the mainstream liberal media to run propaganda, because the more propaganda that they run, the more desperate they are. It tells you that behind closed doors, these people are losing their minds, right? Like, things are actually imploding, which is actually what's happening, apparently, when it comes to Biden's campaign, okay? Reportedly, behind the scenes, they are exiling dissenters, right? Anybody that goes against Biden's strategy and what they want to do to win the election, it seems as if they're kicking those people out, right? Which is hilarious, because what is Biden's strategy? Well, Biden's strategy is to lie, right? Like, that literally is the strategy, right? The strategy is to lie, because they can't run on anything else except lies. So if you don't want to lie on behalf of Joe Biden in his campaign, then they're kicking you out, right? They're kicking you to the curb. Now, again, this comes as rumors are swirling of Joe Biden possibly being replaced, okay? Because if he goes to this debate versus Trump and he has a Mitch McConnell moment, which there's probably like a 70 to 80% chance that that's probably going to happen, he's donezo, okay? And they all know it. So, therefore, there's a plan to replace Joe Biden with whoever the Democrat Party elites want to take over. And I personally believe that that plan is not going to work, because apparently they are skipping over Kamala. That will never work, because the black bourgeoisie of the Democrat Party will revolt against them if they decide to skip over Kamala and to pick somebody like, for example, a Gavin Newsom. But if they pick Kamala, Kamala is just as bad as Joe Biden, okay? And I'm talking about, like, when it comes to everything, okay? They don't win any points with Kamala when it comes to mental fitness for office, because I don't think that Kamala Harris is all the way there either, okay? I think that Kamala Harris is just as gold as Joe Biden, to be quite honest with you, right? So I'm just saying, there's major panic in Biden world right now, and we got to talk about this report that really highlights kind of what's going on behind the scene. The Biden campaign is reportedly exiling aides who question its strategy, creating a, quote, fear of being viewed as disloyal among those working towards the president's reelection, per a new report from Axios. Senior Democrats, including some of President Biden's aides, are increasingly dubious about his theory for victory in November, which relies on voter concerns about January 6th, political violence, democracy, and Donald Trump's character, reports national political correspondent Alex Thompson. Okay, so apparently Democrats, some of Biden's aides, don't like the fact that Biden wants to run on Trump derangement, okay? Which, again, I would say probably is the primary strategy that they used in 2020, okay? But that's not going to work in 2024, and the reason why is because people know what it's like under Trump versus Biden, okay? So the lies and the fear-mongering is just that, lies and fear-mongering, and that's showing up in the polls. The American people know this, so it's just not going to work, okay? Nobody cares about January 6th. Democrats have no room whatsoever to talk about political violence in this country, considering how a vast majority of the political violence in this country comes from the left. They don't really believe in democracy, and Joe Biden is not a better person than Trump, right? When you talk about character. So all of these things are basically a wash, right? I mean, it really is. So I don't blame some of these Democrats who are saying, no, we shouldn't run on this. But then again, what else do they have to run on? They can't run on the results. They can't run on the economy. They can't run on the border. They can't run on crime. They can't even run on the progressive promises that they made, because the progressive base has abandoned the Democrats over what's going on between Israel and Gaza, right? So again, it's just an all-around disaster for the Biden administration. And you can see that affecting their campaign, okay? It's imploding from the inside. Now, again, it's so funny to me how the mainstream liberal media probably is not going to report on this story, okay? Or they'll say it's fake news. But anytime you get a story like this about what's going on in Trump world, right, the mainstream liberal media is all over it, okay? And they treat it as if it is totally legitimate, okay? But any story like this about Biden, you know, they tend not to cover these stories too much. Quote, "It is unclear to many of us watching from the outside whether the president and his core team realize how dire the situation is right now and whether they even have a plan to fix it," one Democratic operative told Thompson. "This is scary." Wow. Wow. People close to the president told Axios they worry about raising concerns in meetings because Biden's group of longtime loyal aides can exile dissenters. Quote, "Even for those close to the center, there is a hesitance to raise skepticism or doubt about the current path for fear of being viewed as disloyal," a person in Biden's orbit told Axios, speaking on condition of anonymity because of those dynamics. Quote, "There is not a discussion that a change, of course, is needed." Yeah, because they believe that people are stupid, okay, and that they can just continue to lie to people and eventually people will go along with it, right? This is what they believe. The source of the enforced enthusiasm on the Biden campaign is reportedly top political aide Mike Denelon, who tells colleagues that, quote, "voters will do the right thing and Joe Biden is a great president and great presidents get reelected." Wow. The delusion is astonishing, right? It really is. Okay. Biden's aides, his handlers, are just as delusional as he is. Okay. I think that they need to get some type of mental checkup, just like Joe Biden. But again, as you guys can see there, in Biden world, things are falling apart, okay? Things are an absolute disaster because they know that they are losing, okay? In fact, I believe that Biden is losing by more than what the polls indicate because Trump tends to underperform in the polls. And because of that, I think that they know that, yeah, Biden's outright just losing, okay? And they're in full-blown panic mode. So, without further ado, I actually want to react to this clip from Fox News of this liberal activist on Fox News trying to play mental gymnastics with the American people in regards to polls showing that most of the American people do not believe that Biden is mentally fit enough for office. So without further ado, let's get into it.
However, recent polling finds the president's acuity is a major issue. This one. Trump is beating Biden by nearly 2-to-1 margin when it comes to having the mental sharpness to be president. 28% say Biden is too old to be president, compared with just 2% who say the same thing about former President Trump. A Fox poll also shows that most voters say Biden is not mentally sound enough to be president. Well, that's interesting. Those are all different ways of saying one single thing. They agree that he's not mentally fit to be president.
And listen, here's the thing. You know it's really not about age because when it comes to Trump, only 2% are saying he's too old to be president. So it's not about age, okay? This is not ageism, which is something that Sonny Holston would argue, right? One of the cackling hands on the View that, oh, well, the hate towards Biden is ageism, right? This is what I'm saying. They're just hating on old people. It's like, no. It's actually because Biden is falling apart, right? It really doesn't have that much to do with his age, even though he's definitely too old. And I definitely think that generally speaking, we should not have 80-year-olds running this country. But more so than anything, it really is about Biden's mental deterioration.
David Avella, GoPac chairman, and Matt Bennett, co-founder of Third Way and former Clinton White House deputy special assistant. Great to see you both. You know, Matt, I'm going to start with you because to me, this is really less about age and more about meeting the moments here at home and on the world stage with the most mental acuity that one can bring with him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, these guys are functionally the same age. Donald Trump is 78 years old. And I think there can be all kinds of debates about who makes more gaffes. I mean, Trump confused Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley.
I actually don't think that there can be debates because I haven't seen former President Trump falling and tripping and having those moments of wandering. And I'm saying irrespective of what we've seen in the last 96 hours. I mean, previously and leading up until that point. I mean, there have been some moments.
Wrong. I mean, it's not true. I mean, Trump
we have some on screen while you talk.
He talks about sharks and electric boats. He confuses people. He said that Joe Biden ran against Obama in a general election. I mean, he makes all kinds of mistakes. But I will say this. We can argue about this all day. These two guys are going to be on a stage with no notes, no aides, no intervention, and Americans are going to be able to see who has more mental acuity.
Yeah, and that is the unfortunate reality for Democrats, which is that in a week, we're actually going to see them both on stage together, and the difference will be night and day. Because, again, the media is trying to play this game, right? It's like a sleight of hand. It's like, well, Trump makes gaffes. Trump makes mistakes. And see, what they don't understand is that it's not about Biden having an occasional gaffe or two when it comes to confusing a name or, mixing things up. Like, that happens, okay? That happens to everybody, okay? It happens to these news anchors. It happens to me. It happens to everybody, okay? Nobody is really getting on Biden for that. It's the fact that Biden is making mistakes that you just shouldn't make as somebody that is mentally aware, right? But Biden's not mentally aware. He doesn't know what's going on, which is why he is doing things like, for example, talking about meeting with dead people. Okay, that's not something that anybody should be doing, right? That is in the right state of mind. Okay. He also is getting lost in regards to where he's at and what he's supposed to do. He has to be told what to do, which again is all indications that he's lacking awareness. Again, I don't care that much about Joe Biden slipping up or stuttering or whatever, right? That's not a big deal to me, okay? Because again, everybody does that. The problem is that Biden is making mistakes that seem to point to a lack of awareness, right? That is the biggest problem. Because if you're not aware, okay, then you can't make decisions. Biden's not making any decisions. I'm not sure who the lunatics in this country voted for. Okay, when they voted for Biden, they didn't get him. Somebody else is actually running the country. Okay, probably Obama. Who knows? But that is a big difference in regards to what we're seeing from Joe Biden than what we're seeing from Trump. When it comes to Trump, we know that he's aware, right? He knows where he's at. He knows what he's supposed to do. Okay, he's not lost. He doesn't need to be guided. Okay, Trump is fully aware, which means he has the ability to make decisions, right? The same cannot be said for Joe Biden. And again, people are going to see that next week. They're going to see it next week on stage. I didn't see it in debate. And in mainstream media, they're going to lose their minds when Biden has that Mitch McConnell moment. We'll see, right? But if Biden actually gets through it unscathed, they'll be praising him like he's the next coming, right? They will say, oh, see, all of the things that people on the right were talking about is overblown. Okay, this is what they'll say, right? That's exactly what's going to happen. It's like the ultimate boom bust for Biden. It really is. The expectations are so low that if he shows up and, again, he just gets through it without having a major moment, then the mainstream liberal media will basically say that he won, right? And that this is proof that there are no problems with Joe Biden.
David.
Where Matt and I agree is that in 7 days, voters get to assess for themselves which of these two men have the mental acuity to be president of the United States. The biggest problem for President Biden is he will say many things that Americans disagree with. He will say the border is secure. And in poll after poll, we see that voters don't believe the border is secure. He will say that life is getting less expensive for Americans. And Americans will say, no, it's not. It's still very expensive, gasoline and food. And in issue area after issue area, the president is going to make statements that Americans just don't believe to be true. And as that helps inform their vote, and the great axiom of perception is reality. And when you sit at 38%, the perception is this guy's not doing the job.
Matt?
Look, I think that's right. We're going to have a debate about the issues. And we're going to, first of all, we're going to talk about the fact that one of these guys has been convicted of 34 felonies.
Wow. You notice that, guys? When this guy says, yeah, we're going to talk about the issues, the first thing they bring up is Trump's conviction, which everybody knows is politically motivated, and that's why it's not hurting him in the polls. But it gives you insight in regards to what the Democrat strategy is. It's exactly what I just talked about in that article we covered. these people really believe that just calling Trump a convicted felon and just continuing to attack Trump instead of addressing the real issues is a winning strategy for them, right? Their strategy literally is, let's distract everybody from everything going on in the country and just focus on Trump. And it's just not going to work, right? It's not. And I actually hope they continue to do that, right? I hope they continue to do what they're doing, right? This guy just told, the number one issue is that, well, Trump is a convicted felon. He don't want to talk about the economy. He doesn't want to talk about the border. He doesn't want to talk about crime. He doesn't want to talk about all the things that are going wrong in this country because of the Democrats and their progressive policies. Because if they did that, then they would have to acknowledge that, yeah, things are bad and we made a mistake. And at this point, that's probably the best strategy for them, right? If I was in Biden's ear, I'd be telling him, look, bruh, just wave the white flag. Just say, hey, you know what? Our policies failed. And we're actually going to work with Republicans to enact more conservative solutions, right? That is honestly what I would do if I was Joe Biden, right? I would abandon the progressives and say, hey, you know what? Let's work with Republicans and be genuine about it, right? Genuinely be like, let's work with Republicans. Because that's the only way that you would be able to save your presidency. And that would put the ball in the Republicans' court. If he actually was genuine, if he actually was like, no, I want to get something done on the border and I'm willing to work with Republicans to do it right now, then maybe he could change something. If he goes along with what Republicans want, which is House Resolution 2, I think that would help Joe Biden. I think he'd get a major boost in the polls because he can say, hey, listen, I'm being bipartisan about this. I'm acknowledging our mistakes and we're changing, right? But again, they don't have enough humility to do that, right? They don't have enough awareness to admit that, hey, we're wrong. Maybe we need to move to the right, okay? Because that's honestly what the Democrat Party should do. They should move to the right. But because they refuse to do so, they want to continue to be more progressive. Look at what Biden's doing on the border. He's basically giving out amnesty now, right? Which is something I told you guys he was going to do, okay? He's going to do it even more if he's reelected. Yeah, this is what they do for their progressive base. But they ignore the same parts of the country. And that has consequences. But again, the strategy is not to talk about the real issues. It's to talk about Trump. And that is a losing strategy for the Democrats.
We're also going to talk about the fact that
what about the 38% that David just mentioned for the Democratic president right now? I mean, I kind of...
Yeah, there's a...
I wish you would actually talk to what he's saying, because that's really where the debate is here.
Well,
I mean, the conviction didn't move the needle for Joe Biden. So I don't know why you would want to go back to that. But what David Avella is talking about are all the ways that this polling is continuing to show that Americans are not happy with the man who's in office right now.
Yeah. Well, again, the reason why is because Biden's approval rating is so low because people disapprove his policies. So why would you go out here and brag about things that people disapprove of, right? That people don't like. It doesn't make sense, right? This is why when these people come out here and talk about, well, Biden needs to come out here and to tout his accomplishments, I'm not sure if that's the right thing to do, because again, that's just like coming out here and telling people, hey, what we did was actually good for you when it wasn't, right? And again, people get annoyed by that. I think that's, again, part of the reason why Democrats are struggling so much. I think personally, the best thing for Democrats to do is just to admit that they were wrong, right? We got it wrong. We spent too much money. Our policies have not been successful. If they actually admitted that, at least people would say, okay, well, they're being honest. But because they continue to lie to people's face and to deny reality, I think that is what's driving Biden's poll numbers even lower, right? The more they come out here and they lie about the state of the country, the lower Biden's poll numbers go. It's actually pretty fascinating to observe. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.